What do you want? I'm in the middle of a podcast. Leave me alone.
This guy who really is, I think, a bad guy. Russell, I think you are a bad guy.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what the truth.
I don't want him knowing where I live.
You can hate Russell, but one thing you cannot take from Russell is his ability to play that game.
I ain't finished playing just yet.
What's going on, everybody? This is the Russell Hand Show. My name's Cody Dunlap. It's on MTV's Stranded with $1 Million. And I'm filling in for Russell again this week. I'm going to fill in for him probably for the rest of Ghost Island, the rest of this season. And I don't know too much about what's going on, but he tells me that it's all going to be worth it, and we're all going to find out whatever he is up to eventually. So, that's exciting. Just want to let you guys know what was up there. And episode 8. We're going to talk about episode 8 today. Hell of an episode. I'm saying it's going to be the climax of this season. I don't think any episode will top what we saw last night. I hope I'm wrong, but that's just how I'm feeling right now. I don't think we could see anything build up like how, the passionate hatred, like at Tribal Council. That's what it's all about. I mean, like this is why I still watch Survivor, for episodes like that. Just like little nuggets of awesomeness, unfolding. Like, we think about like the James Tribal Council and that episode when James went home. This is a really weak episode. Last week's episode was awesome. This week's episode was really cool. And that's what it's all about. You just hope for moments like that to build, where Wendell just roasts roasts Chris. I don't know why I said Mark. Roasts Chris right in front of him. And then he still does not understand that he should play the idol. Like, Dom plays his legacy advantage, and Chris still doesn't play his idol. And it's like the blatant stupidity and like just unawareness of everything. Like, he had one of the worst social games all game long. And then for him to like be gifted an advantage and not use it. Oh, man, I'm going to try to hit this from every angle, guys, but the levels of stupidity, the different, reasons why this was stupid for him not to play the idol is just, really fascinating to me. So, it's just, I can't even put into words, why would you not play that idol, bro? What the hell? But, I guess I want to talk more about Tribal and that decision, and then we'll go through the full episode. But Tribal Council's interesting to me, right? A lot of people are really glad Chris went home, and I understand how you can be annoyed with him. But, I don't know. I guess I watch the show differently than the majority of people. But I enjoy people that bring something to the table. There's so many people every season that I literally will not even learn their name throughout the season, and I will forget they exist afterwards. So many people every season. There's people like that on this season. And I root for them to be voted out, I root for them to be voted out. I'm sorry, but I would rather see Libby go. I'd rather see someone like James go than somebody like Bradley or Chris. Now, I don't like how they might treat people. I don't admire their social game. I don't think that they're great players, but they bring something to the table. Even if it is a horrible social game, that's the type of stuff I want to watch. And to celebrate some characters that actually bring stuff to the table going home, I don't know, you probably just never catch me doing it. At least not until after the relevant people have gone home, the people that don't really bring anything to the table. I feel like next week, we have potential. There's a lot of big players still in the game, and I feel like, there are many good cast members on this season, a lot of people that bring stuff to the table. But I don't see anything that could have been as great as Chris versus Dom and Wendell, with 4 more days added to it. We saw last night, that was intense last night, right? But if you give that fire 4 more days, or 3 or 4, however long it is between tribals at this point, to build, that would just be awesome. And I'm disappointed it didn't happen. And Chris deserves to be voted off. I'm pissed off at him for not playing the idol, so I'm not feeling bad for him at all. But good Lord, man. And what I don't understand is that, like, he's obviously so unaware and played such a horrible social game, but, like, there's a couple, like, key red flags here that if you're playing Survivor should be like, oh, I'm in trouble. One, the advantage being gift wrapped to him. That should tell him, okay, producers are helping me out. I'm carrying the show. He probably is aware that he's a bigger character on the show. I might be in trouble right now. So I need to do something to get out of trouble. And then I need to use this to buy me some more time to get myself out of trouble. And then that's a little one where most Survivor players wouldn't understand that, first-time players at least. But then also, the way Dom and Wendell roasted him in their confessionals. A lot of people think they did it loud enough to where the cast could hear. I think that's accurate. I think he might have been able to hear Dom and Wendell talking crap as they casted their votes on him. But also just the way that they carry themselves into that confessional and how long they spend there, you can tell if somebody is coming at you hard. He knew he was receiving votes, but if they're voting for you like in a very confident way, and they're not hiding it, you're probably in trouble. Like, you are for sure in trouble. You know you're in trouble. So in Chris's mind, he must have thought that he was only going to receive 2 votes. But dude, when you know you're getting those 2 votes and the 2 people you know you're receiving the votes from are acting that confident, you have to understand that they must have numbers. And I don't know, it's just weird. I mean, you can tell that Wendell's a likable guy. You can tell that there's people that like Dom. Chris was freaking delusional on another level to think that everyone was going to just split votes on those 2 guys. I don't know, man. It's weird to me. But then the third thing is that Dom played his legacy advantage. So Dom is now safe. Chris knows he's safe. So, dude, it's just crazy to me. Like, at that point, you got to know. It's between you, Dom, and I don't know what Chris was thinking. Like, Libby would, like, what, I don't know what he was thinking, who was going to go home that made him not play his idol. And the other thing that's crazy, too, is he only can use this idol now or next week. He's a big athletic guy that could easily win immunity next week if he survives this tribal. So, like, if I'm an athletic dude and I think I can beat these people, which there's a couple other athletic dudes out there, like Michael and Wendell are probably capable. Sebastian, maybe, I don't know. A lot of these competitions, it's hard to tell, but Chris has a high chance of winning individual immunity every time he goes and competes. So there's a lot. Those are the reasons I'm thinking of off the top of my head why he's a complete idiot for not playing it. You guys can hit me with other reasons if you can think of them as well. So a couple things I wanted to point out about Tribal that I feel like people don't discuss or people don't think of. I like to bring these to y'all's attention. Like, so Wendell and Dom, and okay, by the way that Chris went out was respectable. He's a good sport, shook Dom's hand and stuff. That was great, especially for Dom. But the way that Wendell treated Chris with the low blows and stuff, dude, that's a jury vote. That's a jury vote, bro. So, like, the last 2 seasons of Big Brother we've seen have came down to 1 vote. All you needed to do was get 1 more vote. Paul lost both times, of course. But all he needed each season was 1 more vote. Like, it's not a jury of 132 people. It's a jury of, what would it be? There'd be 3 finalists, 9 people? I mean, every vote is insanely valuable. So, like, yes, you know Chris is going home. But to talk all that crap for 45 seconds in the confessional instead of just respectfully saying 3 words, like, that little of a thing could be the difference between you getting $1 million or getting that 100,000 Russell Hantz second place trophy. Ask Russell, guys. You guys can ask Russell how he feels about the difference between second place and first. And if Wendell, he's getting all this praise on Twitter right now, but that was stupid. That was not an intelligent thing to do. I talked about this on last week's podcast. Whenever Jeff interviews you, like before or after the challenges or at Tribal Council, those moments where you're kind of in a public setting answering questions. You're not in your private interview. You know, your confessional when you vote is a little bit private because you're over there, and if you talk quiet, they can't hear you. But it's they can see you. They can see your body language. They can see how long you're talking. They can see how you're getting into it. And yeah, that's just one of those things where you have to kind of just play the smart move, stay humble, don't rub it in his face, and send him packing without him hating you. Ask Russell if he regrets making people hate him on their way out. It's what made him so polarizing as a character on the TV show, but it ultimately cost him $900,000, which is not worth it, Wendell. Not worth it to be, a sore winner in this case. You know you're sending the guy home. No need to kick him while he's down. Do the smart thing. That's a jury vote, man. That's a jury vote. People don't think like that. And it's a real shame that people don't have more self-control. And, hey, how hypocritical is this? That Wendell was basically telling Chris, you need to have more self-awareness and be less cocky, more humble. But it's like, Wendell, aren't you the guy that had your tribe sing your girlfriend's birthday to her last week? And aren't you the guy right now that's doing something incredibly stupid for your game and incredibly arrogant? It's the hypocrisy is I'm feeling it with that. And I'm just saying, guys, if you're ever on Survivor and Jeff asks you questions in front of your tribe members, try to make yourself look less intelligent and not more intelligent, because you're not doing yourself any favors. And in this case, jury management. We say it's part of the game. Russell brought up this week on social media, is the game flawed? If it is or isn't, it doesn't matter. The game is how it is. You got to be managing the jury every second of every day if you want to give yourself the best chance of winning $1 million. But anyways, those are just a few things I wanted to point out. Also wanted to point out Libby surviving, incredibly likable, doesn't really do much as far as I can see in the episodes. Who knows? Maybe she's doing some crazy stuff around camp that's just not making the episodes. But for the most part, she's just kind of there, like a lot of other cast members. And I don't think she's very, hated, I would assume. She's not very disliked, or we'd be seeing that on the show. And two guys who are, unanimously the number one hated dude on the island gets sent home back-to-back weeks over Libby. I think it's a mistake to vote out Chris over Libby. I said last week I thought it was a mistake to vote out Bradley over Libby. I was playing devil's advocate last week. This week, I'm just saying how it is. To vote out someone who's hated is usually okay, so every tribal, the person voted out it helps people's games and it hurts people's game. Never can you vote someone out and it helps everybody. Somebody is getting voted out next week, right? And that person, Chris's departure is hurting that person. Whoever wins this season, Chris's departure probably helped. So it helps people and it hurts people. But I feel like, in general, out of the 12 remaining castmates, voting out Chris makes less sense than voting out Libby for their game. Now, the girls that are close with Libby and they're aligned, keep her around. I understand that. But for guys like Wendell and Dom and, who really those two especially, but there are other people, voting out Chris probably wasn't the smartest move. Chris is a guy who really, once these idols, because everyone has idols still, once the idols are gone, say worst case scenario, you're going to tribal tonight, and you have hours to campaign, and you don't have an idol, are you going to tell me that you would rather campaign against sending Libby home or campaign against sending, somebody who's everyone's friend home? Or would you rather campaign against somebody that everybody hates? So campaigning against somebody that hates, it's a nice little safety net in case you lose individual immunity, in case you're idol and legacy advantage get flushed out of the game. And then all of a sudden you're sitting at final 7 and you're having to campaign for people to vote their friend out or vote their enemy out. It's a lot easier to get people to vote their enemy out. People act on emotions. I know it's stupid. I know it makes sense to vote the liked person out, but now we're getting into like double negatives and stuff here, because I could see how it would be easy to convince someone to vote out Libby if it was the last tribal before the final. But in general, it's easier to get people to vote emotionally. But I don't know. I feel like voting out Libby would have made more sense there for the majority of people, or at least some people. Hell, 2 people saw it. Desiree, I believe her name is. Hopefully I'm getting that right. I don't have the cast in front of me, and a lot of these people, they're not getting much camera time. It's really a few characters really dominating the show, but I believe Desiree, the 21-year-old, mentioned it at the water well to vote. Like, Libby's probably the person that we should target. So good on her for having that awareness, because I'm always begging people to have that awareness. All right, anyways, that's Tribal Council. I could talk about it all day. Let's go through the episode. So, like I mentioned a little earlier, we start the episode off, and I want to tell you guys, I started watching the episode 7 minutes in. And if you can imagine, I started watching when they were sleeping and when Chris woke up and went to the boat. If you could imagine what I was thinking, I was like, what in the hell is going on? Why is there a dude on a boat helping him go to Ghost Island? That was something to talk about, production-wise. But after rewatching and stuff, yeah, you can always make the argument that production's hooking people up. And the truth is, we'll never know how everything goes down. But I would say that in this case, good on production for helping Chris out, because he's going to war with people who have multiple advantages in some cases. And he really had no chance. And if he had survived another week, that would have been awesome for the fans. I don't know. I'm fully embracing producers rigging it now. And I know I've complained about that in the past. The truth is, I'm just accepting it at this point, guys. I would like it if it was like referees in football, where referees might rig games too. But for the most part, like, NFL referees are pretty damn neutral. Like, we complain all the time and stuff about calls, but I would like producers to be a little bit more neutral. But it's never going to be that way. So with that said, hey, props to producers for finding a way to give Chris a chance to survive tonight, because that's their job. They got to make the show entertaining, right? And if Chris had survived tonight, Tribal would have been just as entertaining as it was. It would have maybe been more entertaining, because it would have been fun to see Wendell and Dom just be like blown up. And then next week you'd probably get to see Chris go home, so you'd get what you got tonight plus then some. And now going into next week, I don't know how it's looking. I think people will probably. It looked like in the preview people were waking up to Wendell and Dom having too much power. Yeah, probably would have been smart to keep Chris around, you two, if you guys were thinking logically and not emotionally. But anyways, Chris gets that advantage. I'm blown away. I'm like, what the hell is going on? There's a boat taking him, and I was talking to my fiance Autumn about this. Some of this stuff is re-recorded. I talked about it last week, I think, with the idols, where if someone finds an idol like in the middle of the night, they could reshoot that in the daytime to get a better shot, so that when we see it at home, it's more clear. The truth is, guys, Ghost Island is probably on the same island that they're on. I would venture to say every camp is on the same island in Fiji. Because it's not like there's perfect little islands like just sitting offshore. But I don't know, maybe there is. But there's a chance that Ghost Island's on the island and Chris just walked a mile down the beach. Because I'm just thinking, like, how does this work where there's a boat? Like, how do people not notice there's a boat? Like, I figure, like, somebody out of the 13 people, well, 12 people that aren't Chris, it would be like going pee or something and be like, why is there a boat over there? Or hear the boat, maybe. I don't know. Because when you're sleeping on the beach outside, it's not like you're like falling into a deep sleep. It's not like you're getting great sleep. And then everyone always tells stories about how some people don't sleep because they stay up to look for idols or they stay up to watch other people or whatever. But I don't know. It just seems a little unrealistic to me that Chris could actually pull that off. So just food for thought. Maybe he just walked down the beach to Ghost Island, and then maybe they refilmed that epic scene when he was really at Ponderosa. And you see what I'm saying? See that how that timeline works there? So say Chris walks to Ghost Island, gets his advantage, gets voted out the next day, and then the next day after that, once he's at Ghost Island, they go and refilm his whole experience at Ghost Island, the well-lit. I mean, I don't know. I'm throwing conspiracy theories out there. Who knows? Maybe it happened exactly how it was presented, but just it's always good to think outside the box sometimes and not take everything for what it appears to be, especially in reality TV. But anyways, I applaud producers for if producers are gonna affect the game. I think that was a good one. I think that was a good call to give Chris an idol. Shame on him for not using it, but hey, it was entertaining to watch him not use it too. So still cool. So good on producers for sliding that his way. Just if we're embracing producers' role in this, which they clearly have one. So he gets the idol. Next, I'll skip ahead to the challenge. We have Kellen win the challenge. So now she's got her extra vote that she can use, and she got immunity. Nice, good job on her. I don't know. I always think it's interesting how people handle the individual immunity challenges. They don't really get to talk about it as much on Survivor the way they do on Big Brother. And Big Brother, like, throwing challenges is a huge part of the game. I feel like on Survivor, especially for these guys that are physical studs, it's crucial to try to look really, really bad if you're losing. If you need to win, you got to get that win. But you never want to look really good and then lose. And I feel like, well, obviously Chris is playing a horrible game, but good Lord, dude. Like, he made himself look competitive and took the loss. And he had an idol, but he could play his idol 2 weeks, so he's probably trying to win it this week and then play his idol next week. So that would have been entertaining. But good for Kellen winning her individual immunity. It's always got to be a great achievement for Survivor contestants to get that individual immunity. A lot of people play and never win it. And to win that first one, it's got to feel great for her. But yeah, I saw a lot of people showcasing their skills and coming up empty-handed. But I don't know. I feel like I would like to see immunity challenges thrown. Like, I would like to see that be part of the game. But obviously, if we haven't seen someone talk about, like, we don't see people talk about it the way they talk about it on Big Brother. So I'm assuming they edit that out a little bit. But I don't know. There is a lot of stuff that we see. Like, Survivor episodes are great. They're jam-packed. It'd be nice to get more episodes, honestly. CBS All Access, maybe. Get a bonus episode between episodes. Because the amount of stuff they pack into these is just insane. So I'm sure some people threw the challenge, but it certainly didn't look like it from some of them, and that's going to bite them in these next several weeks because people are going to target the individual studs. And if you are an individual stud, you want to look the least studly of the competition studs. So, and we'll see what happens next week, but I think, and fortunately they all have immunity idols to bust out. But I think those guys like Michael and Wendell, and I don't consider Dom a physical threat really, but he is a huge social threat and everyone's aware of that. But maybe Sebastian after that, those guys will get targeted. It's what always happens after the merge. And then they get in a spot where they need to win to stay in. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to talk as much as I can about the challenge. It is what it is. It was a balancing challenge, whatever. Fun to watch. The edit was a little obvious because the second place finisher, they were making look like they had it in the bag, and they're making Kellen look like she was about to lose. So obviously she's going to win. But yeah, she wins immunity. And then we have Chris being Chris, doing one of the dumbest things you can possibly do. Have a tribe meeting with everyone and just assume that every person on your season thinks exactly how you do. It's like, bro, like, it's cool to think the way you think. You hate Dom, you hate Wendell, whatever. That's the way you feel. That's your opinion. Those are your feelings. But to assume that every person on the cast is just going to bow down to you and be like, yeah, you're right. Screw Dom, screw Wendell. Like, you have to realize they have a few friends. More than a few, honestly. Like, I feel like it's so obvious to me that Wendell is great socially. Like, if I was out there, I would think, this guy Wendell, he's pretty good at everything. Like, I would be aware of that at least. I wouldn't rally up 10 other individuals at once against Wendell, because I would know there's probably about 4, 5, or 6 of you out of the 10 that really like Wendell. So I might want to take my angles in like a one-on-one approach. But that's one of the things that made this episode great, was Chris's just inability to play the social side of Survivor. And it's like, why would he think that's a good idea? But then it's also interesting to think about how Wendell and Dom were sitting there alone, just complaining about not getting invited to the water well. It was one of those things to me where it was just really weird, because like, it was almost like as if production, like, okay, so sometimes production needs to get video of certain people talking. And I don't know, it just kind of felt like they divided them there. Like, it felt as if Dom and Wendell weren't able to go to the water well. Because why the hell wouldn't you go? It's bizarre. But someone brought up that they didn't go because they wanted to see they knew what was going on down there, and they wanted to see who their loyal friends were, because their loyal friends would talk to them. I can see that. I can make sense of that. And that's what happened ultimately. But I don't know. I feel like it was weird how they were like kind of bitter about not going to the water well, but it was like, nothing's stopping you guys. Like, go down there and try to figure out what's going on, or try to at least stop Chris from planting any sort of seeds. Which it wasn't like he was planting seeds either. He was just trying to be a dictator. And that's the thing. You got to plant seeds. The one-on-one conversations I'm talking about. Like, I don't know. It's just, but it's, hey, I'm not going to lose any more sleep over Chris's stupidity. I mean, it's unbearable in so many ways throughout the episode. I wanted one more episode of Chris, man. I wanted one more episode of it. But it is what it is. He ultimately got roasted very hard in the tribal council setting, and he had the idol in his pocket to really put people in their place for talking crap, for putting hate and negativity on his name, but he didn't. And that's hilarious to me. But that's really all I have for this episode. I tried to take some angles that I feel like not everyone was pointing out on social media. Yeah, Chris is an idiot. If you ever go on Survivor, don't play like that. But we'll see we'll see the aftermath of the end of the Chris versus Dom era, because there's a lot of game to be played. Everyone's got, not everyone, but we have Wendell, Dom, and Michael, the 18-year-old that looks like the 28-year-old. All three of them have their idols. So, and I said this last week, but it's great to see big players have idols, because it just sucks when random people stumble across them. So next week could be really entertaining, especially if the idols come out. Wendell was able to save his. I guess the only other thing that I really think is important in this episode is the fact that Dom played his legacy advantage, when honestly Dom had to have a pretty good idea that he was safe. Like, Wendell didn't play his idol, and Dom had to have a pretty good idea that he was safe. It was pretty obvious, but maybe Dom was speculating that Chris had an idol. is why you would play that, which Chris did have an idol. So it's easy to Monday morning quarterback it and say he could have held on to his legacy advantage. I would say he made the right decision to use that legacy advantage, because you don't want to go home when you had a legacy and immunity. You don't even want to risk it. He knew Chris was gunning for him. He didn't know if Chris had an idol. So good play there, but man, it's gotta really hurt to play an advantage like that or an idol and then not get votes and it really feel like it was wasted. But I think that's the right move that he made there, and I don't blame him. I would say I would have done that too if I was in his shoes. Okay, here's the other thing too. The last thing I wanted to hit on was Dom's fake idol. So, I don't remember the first time a fake idol came into the game. I'm sorry, guys. I've watched every season. I love Survivor, but I'm not like one of those like Wikipedia type memorizing like milestones and stuff. Like, I don't know the first time a fake idol was used, but I'm pretty sure that the point of a fake idol is not to be done in the way that Dom did it on Chris. Because what happened with Dom and Chris is Dom finds a real idol, and then he shows Chris a fake idol. And like, what? And like, what's the point of that? Now Chris thinks you have an idol, but you do have an idol, bro. Like, the point of a fake idol is to either, one, trick someone into thinking you have an idol when you don't, so that they're scared to vote for you, or they split their vote and you can fracture their split. Or two, give somebody a fake idol or lead somebody to a fake idol that you want to feel safe so that they stop looking for the real idol or just get overconfident and it screws them. Like what we saw with Jay and Millennials and Gen X. He had a fake idol he thought was real, and it bit him in the butt. And then, like forgetting the super fan's name who went home second this season, I think Jacob, sorry for forgetting his name, because he really appreciated being on the show, and I enjoyed his passion for Survivor. But the way he made his fake idol was to kind of scare people away from voting for him. Those are really the two ways you want to use a fake idol. You do not, however, want to hold a real idol and then tell your enemy, hey, I've got this idol, and show them a fake one. Because what does that do? That makes your enemy think you have an idol, in which case you really do have an idol. So that's another reason why Chris is a complete idiot, because in Chris's mind, he thought that Dom had an idol, which, although the idol was fake that he thought was real, Dom had a real idol. So Chris was game planning as if Dom has an idol, which he did have an idol, so he was correctly game planning. And the only reason he was correctly game planning is because Dom misused a fake idol. So, I don't know, that whole thing there fascinates me. Like, why the hell would you show your enemy a fake idol when you have a real idol? Because that's not the point. That's not how you use a fake idol. But then also, for Chris to misuse the information is pretty funny too. But I also thought it would have been pretty dope if Dom gave Chris the fake idol. Like, if he went up to Jeff and said, hey, I'm going to play this shell necklace on Chris. I want to keep him safe. And then Jeff just throws it in the fire and says, that's fake idol. But that would be contradicting my whole rant on Wendell getting kind of jury management. You don't want to rub it in their face, you know. And hey, props to, both of them deserve respect, Chris and Dom, because they shook each other's hands, no hard feelings. I'll tell you what, guys, if I'm playing Survivor, it's personal. It's $1 million. It's not a fucking game to me. And it's not a game. People say it's just a game. No, absolutely not. The money's real, and Survivor means way more to me than just some game. It's not Monopoly, all right? You get to play Survivor, once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm pissed. So for them to shake hands, good for them, and smart for Dom, jury management. If Dom and Wendell are the final two, which I think it's the final three, but if they're the final two, and Chris is the deciding vote, who's he voting for based on what happened? The guy that talked for him in confessionals for 45 seconds, talking crap, and wrote the rapper on his little name, on his little slip where he voted, or the guy who shook his hand and said, "Good game, buddy." He's probably not going to want to vote for Dom or Wendell to win $1 million, but if he has to choose, he's voting for Dom. So good jury management from Dom there, shaking his hand and just being a good sport in general. But that's it for episode 8, and it was a great episode, and hopefully next week will be just as great. It'll be fun to see the aftermath of the Chris vs. Dom rivalry, and I think that Dom and Wendell are in a worse place going into next week than they would have been if they sent someone like Libby home. But I don't know. They both have idols, so I'm sure they'll be all right. We'll see who wins individual immunity. It's a bug-eating competition, which is great because that's vintage Survivor. That is a classic, man. And we don't get the auction anymore, which is a real shame and sad. And I like to think that they still do the auction. They just don't show us. I think that's a hell of an idea. CBS should do the auction. Don't put it in your episode, that's fine. Do the auction, but then put it on CBS All Access for us to watch. Because, I don't know, it's just entertaining. But I guess the auction is also a way to like put advantages into the game, and they kind of have like an overflow of advantages in today's Survivor, so maybe that wouldn't be a good idea. But, yeah, it's good to see the bug-eating competition next week. And it'll be interesting to see how the balance of powers readjust now that there isn't a Bradley or a Chris, somebody who everyone can unanimously hate. So we'll see how that affects the game. It's going to be interesting, and I'm excited to watch it, and I'm excited to recap it here on the Russell Hantz Show. So look out for the podcast next week. Thank you all so much for listening. I'll see you guys around on social media. My handle's @CodyThrive. If I missed anything or if I said anything incorrect, I know last week I forgot that Dom had the idol. It's hard to keep track of all these advantages, but hit me up on social media. We can talk about the game. I'm as obsessed with Survivor as you all are. Thanks for listening, and I will see you next week.